Hey River, what do we want?
This.
When do we want it? So I'm about to introduce the panel. And the panel that we have today, I'm not sure if everybody knows everybody on the panel, but we should feel so lucky, blessed, grateful for not only is there so much knowledge, but there's also so much wisdom on this panel. So I'm really excited. And when we watch a movie like that, and we think about gentrification, I think it's so big. How do we attack it? How do we fight against it with love and community? And just before I introduce the lovely Charles Trott, I just want to mention some things that are happening here in Asbury. See, Charles didn't even bat an eyelash, so they called him lovely. Lorraine's making fun of me for saying that. But one thing that's happening, a few different groups, St. Stephen's and Second Baptist, they've held wide community meetings about how to get affordable housing with the new buildings that are being built on the southwest side. We have interfaith neighbors, who some people are actually here today, who provide rent money for people who need it for down payments, but also help low-income folks and middle-class folks buy houses. There's the Asbury Park Affordable Housing Coalition that with the city is trying to write an affordable housing ordinance, which would demand 20% affordable housing, any building that has 10 or more spaces for rent. We have the community support Kay Harris. Kay Harris is over there. And for you those who don't know, which I'm sure she'll introduce herself as, but Kay for the last 13 years has had a business on the boardwalk, the Galleria, and was just priced out. So the committee to support Kay Harris got together and is trying to get Kay Harris back on the boardwalk, but also more black business on the boardwalk, more black culture on the boardwalk. And Madison and Marquette, they even just invited NJ PAC to come here to have more people of color events in Asbury Park. And then lastly, there's a lot of things going on, but there's a new group called Cooperate Asbury that is thinking about starting black cooperatives in Asbury that are worker-owned, and maybe some housing if possible. So anyway, I'm going to introduce Charles now. So Charles Trott has lived here pretty much his whole life, minus 2 years. But what I have to say about Charles, he's an artist and a historian. Specifically, he doesn't identify as a historian, but I'm identifying him as an historian, which is maybe problematic. But his next event, people can see, we have the flyers, it's May 23rd, from 6 to 7, and every month for different groups of different ethnicities, there's Black History Month, he did Indigenous Peoples History Month, he did Women's History Month. This month is Asian and Pacific Islander Month, and so he does an art exhibit, some history, and then on the 23rd from 6 to 7 you can hear him talk about that. And he normally has a panel, and you'll get to learn about our Asian and Pacific Islander community members. But Charles is also a friend, such a wonderful person, and I feel it's so rare to get someone who's super creative artistically, so knowledgeable, that also has wisdom. And the scary part about Charles is that he also has a ton of passion. So when you mix creativity, knowledge, and wisdom, and passion, you get Charles Trott.
I'm not going to take any more time. I just want to say this. My project is called DIA. It's an acronym for diasporic, for the images, of Africa. What is that? I show the connection between Africa, African civilizations, and cultures with those of cultures and countries around the world. That's enough about me. I'm actually a visual artist. My strength is illustration and murals, but I do more at any rate. But I'm an arts educator, meaning I encompass all of the arts, dance, music, see, you know the rest, poetry and all that. Let me call the panel up, and I'm going to ask them to identify themselves briefly. Please, panel, come up. All right, this is the teacher of me. We're gonna have a little warm up, and in most of American music especially, so there's a thing called call and response. It doesn't matter what genre or what type of music. It's in rock and roll, it's in gospel, it's in rap, it's in jazz, it's in all of those. So what I'm going to do as an example, and I'm going to, you all won't have paper, but I'm going to run through about 10 of them. If you number your papers 1 through 10. I don't want the panel to respond. I want you all, 1 or 2 of you. Okay, why am I doing this? To get an idea of some of your thoughts on some of these words which tie into that movie. All right? And preferably, well, 2 or 3 of you can answer, but I'm going to move sort of quickly. So when I say cut, we move on. All right? Let me give you an example. If I say Asbury Park, what would somebody say? Go ahead.
Logo.
Who?
Logo.
Melville?
Logo.
Oh, okay. All right, so you get it, right? What about Tilly? Tilly's ever present. What's the matter with you? Nobody said Tilly? It's Asbury Park. All right, never mind. You get it. Everyone understand where we're going? Now I'm asking you all, when I say the word, you say what, you feel, what it represents to you, what you think of, all right? Let's start with gentrification. Come on, folks, come on, wake up now. I'm trying to get you involved. Let's go. Don't be afraid. There's no wrong answer here.
Asbury Park.
Thank you very much. There are many other cities, towns, villages that are being gentrified too. Come on now, let's wake up. Let me get my list because, I'm a little forgetful. I'm a man of a certain age, you understand. All right. Atlantic City, yeah, right, that's another one. Immigration.
Hatred.
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you.
I said hatred.
Hatred, okay, all right. Anyone else?
Borders.
Borders, all right, let me move on. Underprivileged.
White privilege.
White privilege, anyone else?
Left out.
Left out, all right. Grassroots.
Short-lived.
People.
Sorry.
Working people.
Working people, all right. Okay, let me move to the next one. Right to return.
No rights.
No rights. Anyone else? Fear. I heard a couple others.
Palestine.
Palestine, yeah, okay. Native.
American.
American. Anyone else? Who?
Left out.
Left out. Okay, let me move on. Latino.
Dancing.
Dancing, okay. Uh-oh. Wait a minute, let's keep it in English now. All right, one more. And panel, you're supposed to be writing down what you think of each of these words. I'm sorry, I didn't make it clear. Yeah, see, this is the type of teacher I was. That's why my students, would be rowdy and they wouldn't follow me. And I'm wondering why you don't understand what I'm saying. All right, let me move on. Africa.
Egypt.
Motherland.
The beginning.
Egypt.
Beginning, Egypt. Right. Oh, who? Marcus? Who?
Marcus Garvey.
Oh, okay, Marcus. All right. Ghetto.
Nazis.
Nazis. What was the other one? The first one? Oh, Geico. Oh,
Tears.
Deers?
Tears.
Tears. Yes. Okay, let me move on. Asian.
A language.
A language?
The language.
The language. The languages. There are many countries on that continent, and there are even more languages.
Lovely people if you let them.
let me move on. Urban,
Okay.
decay, concrete.
Crowded.
All right, now I moved past 10, but I'm gonna do one last one. Minority,
Too many.
2 minutes. No one else, come on now.
Majority.
Majority,
Global
the
majority.
opposite, global majority. All right, now, hold on panel, you probably only have 5 or 6, I'm gonna get back to you in a minute, and if I don't, remind me, okay? Let's start this discussion. I don't know how you all felt about the movie. I had the privilege of watching it because, as a moderator, oh, wait a minute. Briefly, let's introduce ourselves. We start here with Muata.
Can you hear me? Okay, can you hear me? My name is Muata Greene. I'm part of Veterans for Peace and a Vietnam vet. Also, I'm a retired paramedic in New York City Fire Department, and I've been a union and political activist, I guess, almost 49 years.
My name is Delice-Kircher. I own a technology consulting business, and I also help people use technology to get ahead in their careers and to improve their businesses. I'm also on the Food and Quality of Life Committee in town. I attend the First Haitian Baptist Church right on the other side here. My organization, the nonprofit I'm affiliated with, also runs the celebration of Haitian Heritage Month, which happens to be this month. And we're celebrating this Saturday, and you'll see more about that. I'm also a recent author. My book is in the back if you want to stop by and talk. But mostly people come to me for connections. They know if I don't know who they need, I probably know the person who knows what they need.
Thank you.
That's it.
I'm not timing, but I have to.
Okay, I'm Kay Harris, and I grew up in Asbury Park. I guess like many of you here, I think I wear several hats, and I'm a member of the Dialogue Group, a trustee of the Asbury Park Historical Society, and my hat's off to Charles Trott for actually being a part of that as well, because I think we as African Americans need to be actively a part of all aspects of what's going on in our city, and that's just one example of being a part of that organization as well. And as you mentioned, even though I'm retired from the business world, in the later years I became an entrepreneur, and I have owned a business on the boardwalk for over 13 years. And we'll talk about that a little later. I'm going to pass it on to Tyrone.
Thank you.
And everybody, if you hold it top of the mic, it won't get as fuzzy. Oh. Don't let it kind of lean on the people.
I'm going to try to project. My name is Tyrone Laws. I've been in Asbury Park for 30 years. I've been involved in political advocacy and activism for that period of time. I now run a program in town for homeless men called the Winifred Canrat House. Also, I'm the program manager for the Corrections AIDS Project, where we do discharges for men coming out of particular institutions in the state of New Jersey.
Thank you. All right, let's get right to it. As I ask these questions, now if you could try to keep it to about 2 minutes. I'm not having too good a time here, so I'm gonna have to approximate. But anyone who starts, there's no real order. I just throw the questions out there. The first question. All of you here, well, most of you I'm sure, are familiar with Charles Dickens' A Tale of Two Cities. One of the lines, I think it's the opening line, it was the best of times, it was the worst of times. Briefly tell me how that applies to black business in Asbury Park specifically, please. Whoever wants to go first, you got about 2 minutes.
When you say specifically black businesses, the best of times, we would have to go way back. And basically, I think it was concentrated in the Springwood Avenue section. And when I think about the film, when she says, 3 years, we've been displaced, where we've been displaced for about 48 years. So I would say the worst of times as far as Black involvement actively in our community on a business level has been way, way too long, over 40 years. Yes, we've had a sprinkle, hit or miss, business here and there, but we've lost the camaraderie of the community, as you even indicated in the film, where people looked out after each other. When I grew up, you could send your daughter or son down to the corner store in Springwood Avenue and say, oh, my mom needs a loaf of bread, and he would jot it down on a piece of paper and you would pay for it later. And that's what happens with the community situation. The worst of times for Black businesses is basically now. And ironically, Asbury Park is on the precipice of actually turning around, and everybody's excited about it. We're hearing about it nationwide, but I feel that Black businesses are actually being left out of that forward movement.
Great, thank you. Next, anyone?
The best of times and the worst of times. I'd like to quote a visitor from the future, coming in from 2500 AD. And they said, I've been to the future and you were not there. Black businesses are non-existent now in the main corridors of Asbury Park. There needs to be a concerted effort to not only encourage businesses, but to support those businesses. The businesses that were on Cookman Avenue, there's a friend that had a shoe store called Soulmates, and that was one of the only businesses on Cookman Avenue. But if we go up that same Cookman Avenue, I was on the charter board for the Black Box in Asbury Park. And the Black Box, we were next to John F. Kennedy Park, and we had a structure of unification of all artistic endeavors. And what we did was we brought culture in for this area. And the Black Box was something that said that we would express ourselves. Now, what has happened was there was a Ethiopian and Egyptian diner 2 doors down. There was a African American training school for beauticians and the cosmetology. So at that time there were many things, but my wife's family got here in 1927. And the elders tell the story of Cookman Avenue, of Springwood Avenue, of Asbury Park Beach, and this entire area.
Okay, thank you. Next.
It was the worst of times, it was the best of times. It is the worst of times in terms of always discovering a new Black or brown business that we did not know existed. Personally, as an Asian American person, as I do the celebration of Asian Heritage Month, I always want to include as many Black businesses as possible, particularly Asian businesses, so that this can be a grassroots event and not just an event sponsored by a handful of people. And yet, it's always like, oh, did you talk to so-and-so? Well, no, I didn't know they existed. And it's not simply something that happens with Asian American businesses or Jamaican businesses. It happens with a lot of businesses of color, where they operate in the shadows and even without really knowing one another. And I think that's something which can definitely be improved. It's the best of times in terms of media and technology allowing us to reach people beyond the person we can run into at church or in the store that we frequent every day where we get our coffee. Like, you're a Starbucks person, you never go to Wawa or you never go to Dunkin' Donuts. But because of technology, we can now reach out to each other as well as reach out to the larger business community. I feel this is a waste of time because we don't have to simply look at the way things have been in the past. We can change it if we make a decision to.
Thank you.
I would say, in some ways, politically, economically, it's the worst of times, because as capitalism fails, the people at the bottom always fall off first. Capitalism never worked for the majority of people, and if you can see what's happening, it's more competitive than it's ever been. As you show, you can see it with trade and everything else, because I look at everything not just locally, but globally, because everything's connected. So I would say, based on the economy and based on what's going on, it's the worst of times.
Great, thank you. Let me go on to the next question. In America, there are phrases like, we're a nation of immigrants. All so-called races have said this. There's also a favorite pet peeve of mine. Oh, we're a melting pot. Give me your take on it. Whoever wants to start, go ahead. The melting pot or we're a nation of immigrants. Don't hit them both, because I know we can hear all night and then I'll have to get in it.
First, we have to look at the beginnings. In this nation, if everyone came here from someplace else, that makes everyone an immigrant. However, there are aboriginal inhabitants of this nation. And because the narrative of history has been made in a certain manner, many of those stories have never been told. Many of those stories of the first individuals in this nation have never been told, or they have been silenced. And what we have to do as a commitment is to understand that we have the obligation to broaden our tables, to go in and understand what makes us similar, but also to understand and encourage the difference, because that is very strong. And it's that difference that if we feel comfortable enough to bring an understanding of what the true nature of America is, despite the present status of America, but the true nature of America and what it did in 1676 to 1677 in the Bacon Rebellion, which caused America to come forward and start to say that we can do something in a unified manner. And since that time, it has never been able to happen as of 1791.
Thank you.
I think what makes our nation so unique is that we are a nation of immigrants. And I like to say that we should be celebrating our differences and not try to overblend. In fact, one of my pet peeves is that when people do speak other languages, and they may say, oh, what are you doing? You're being rude, because they are speaking maybe with Spanish. And I say, hey, I think we just feel that the world revolves around us. You go to Europe and people are speaking 4 different languages. They go out of their way to accommodate us by speaking English. So by all means, and matter of fact, I feel a little bad because sometimes the Hispanic young kids or folks who are from Haiti who speak the Creole, the parents actually don't want the kids to speak Creole or Spanish. They're afraid, oh no, you have to assimilate. And I think that we should not lose our natural culture and language, and I think that's one of the things we should really try to encourage. Not shirk behind it and be afraid, but embrace it and be proud of whatever your ethnicity is.
Okay, thank you. As a matter of fact, no, never mind, go ahead. No, we don't want to hear from me.
So, I know you're the one who asked the question, but I'd be interested to know why a melting pot is a pet peeve of yours. But here's the way I was introduced to the term. We started learning English before we came to this country. And once we came here, that's when I first heard the term melting pot. And the way it was explained to me is that it doesn't matter where you came from, but once you're here, you become a citizen. Everybody's a citizen just as if you have been here for many generations. So that's the way I took it. I don't cook, but I love to eat. So don't judge what I'm about to say. But you can have, a dish where everything blends in and you can't really tell what's what because there are so many ingredients in there. But then you can also have dishes where certain ingredients stand out to you. And I feel it can be a combination of both, where people, we're all different. Even if we're all black here on the panel, there's a lot of differences between us. So I feel that there's a lot that we can offer each other, and I think that's why, in terms of our individuality, that's great, but I think also in terms of the melting pot, it's trying to find an identity as human beings first and foremost, and not necessarily, I'm a younger woman, or he's a man and I'm a woman, etc. I think those are superficial.
I think we're a nation of immigrants, we're a nation of immigrants. This melting pot is a fallacy that America puts out all over the world to make immigrants and other people coming in to make it seem like everything is going to be okay. It's a myth. Like American history, it's a myth. And the bottom line, like my brother Todd was saying earlier, like this country was inhabited long before the Europeans came in. But then when Europeans came, they changed their identity too. And in fact, there's a book, I don't know if you've ever heard of it, When Irish Became White.
That's a great book.
Okay, because when Irish were in England, they were considered white. They were like the Scottish, one like that. But then when they came here, then they, became, they blended in because of skin color. So we gotta look at the whole history of how this whole race thing came about in America and how America created this so-called dominant culture, or white supremacist culture. It all comes out of that.
Okay, thank you. Let's just take a little break. If you all remember some of the words that when I was saying things like Latino, African, ghetto, Asian, urban, and minority, some of the words that you all had, met me with, I called out those words, you responded with certain other words. I just want to hear what the panel had to say. And we just go down the line with each word. Did all of you pick up on or write down when we started with Latino? Did you have it? No, it wasn't. But all right, let's see. Have Latino? All right. What do you feel? Latino, hit it. Just one word.
Oh, one word.
Just one. Well, a phrase. Don't go off. If I say Latino, what word would you say? Or
Intriguing.
Intriguing. Okay. Latino. Hispanic.
Family.
Muata.
Dominant culture of America.
I said one word, man. No, let's give me one word. No, what was your word? I'm sorry. Culture. Okay, very good. Africa. We'll start with Muata this time, and then we move that way.
Humanity.
Minerals. Motherland.
Beginning, okay. I'm just going to do two more.
Black Panther.
All right. I'm just going to do like two more words, and then we're going to go back. We did Latino, we did Africa. Let's go to ghetto. We can start with you.
Isolated.
Okay, isolated. Top.
I'm holding the mic.
Oh, okay. A minute.
Okay, next.
Isolated.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, all right, new word.
Community.
Community, okay, good.
Home.
Let me say minority.
White.
Okay. See, instead of being blackballed, you whiteballed now, especially if you're a person of color. Go ahead.
1932.
1932.
Adaptive.
Adaptive. Okay.
Political.
And the last one, which is a favorite one, urban.
City.
Renewal.
Plan.
Okay. Okay, you wanted to take one now? No. Urban. City.
Asbury Park.
Oh, Asbury. Okay, very good. So, see, I know everyone has a different, response to these words, but I just wanted to give you a glimpse of what say Afro-American, Afro-Caribbean in terms of Greene, because she's Haitian-American. I'm Afro-Caribbean as well, even though I was born in Brooklyn, raised in Asbury Park. But anyway, that's a whole other story. Well, first of all, as black people, or African-Americans, Afro-Americans, I like the term obvious African descendants. We are all African descendants. Yes, you white folks are too. Why is that? Because the scientific community told us that, and most of them did not look like me. So don't take it from me, look it up. It was written up in the Smithsonian magazine, it was written up in other notable magazines about 30 years ago. And I know they're still digging. But the oldest fossilized skeleton, and you know her, 3.8 million years ago. Where was it found? Can't hear you. You're darn skippy. Okay, let's go back to the questions, all right? I'm just going to do a few more because we're under the tyranny of the clock, and if this is supposed to end around 8:30, it's 8:03 now. I'd love to hear the comments or questions from you all, okay? But I'm gonna do one or two and see how it goes. This is supposed to, this panel, and as I told Derek, I said, the movie's about gentrification. This panel and this discussion is supposed to be about black business. They are definitely interlinked, interwoven, but those two topics could be addressed, individually. But let me go to this. How and what can a more socialistic attitude do to create black business in Asbury in particular? And Bernie pushed some socialistic type, you know what I'm talking about, Bernie Sanders. I'm not asking you who you voted for, but he pushed, and it's been pushed by others before him, but you have a broad concept of socialism, which is something we're not supposed to talk about because we're a democracy. We don't play that socialism stuff. What do you mean everybody had free health care, which is a socialistic concept? But let me go to that. How could we use a socialist model to create black business in Asbury Park?
Well, first of all, I think socialism is more natural to humankind than capitalism. Because if you go back, we talk about the roots of Africa a lot. It was more of a collective, they didn't call it any socialism, or a more communal society. And clearly that's what socialism basically is, a communal society. In fact, in one of our holidays that we celebrate here, Kwanzaa, one of the principles is Ujamaa, which simply means cooperative economics. So it's not being against individuals who own stuff or have a business, but we're saying it's about the community benefit at large. For instance, now statistically, you can check this out, there are more black millionaires than we ever had. But the black community as a whole is what we were economically 50 years ago. So that shows you the whole thing about trickle-down economics that came out of Reagan and other books doesn't work. And I think we have to create new models and stuff in this country in order to do things different. And in fact, most people, older people like me, people over 50, whatever, they have this whole thing left over from the Cold War about communism, blah, blah, blah. But if you take younger people under 30, and the polls are pointing to that, they have no problem with socialism. Of course, it's more humane way. What's wrong with education and healthcare being a human right? Every human deserves that. So that's more looking at what a socialist model could be. We're not saying it's perfect, but things can be worked out. We sure know capitalism hasn't been working. So that's why I feel it is a good alternative.
Thank you.
I can say that I actually am a very strong socialist at heart. And unfortunately, the term socialism tends to have a negative connotation to it. And the reason why I feel that I am that way, when you think about the film and you looked at the area in which it was being torn down, where blacks were living, they were living below the poverty level. And you say, well, why would they even want to stay there? And don't believe for 1 minute that they're happy living in deteriorated buildings. It's just that's the only place they can afford to live right now. And because we are in a capitalist society, it's the way paid salaries are associated with jobs that we perform. And I feel that every position is extremely important. Matter of fact, you probably couldn't even pay me enough to do some of the jobs that very low paying salaried workers get. And it doesn't mean that one person can't make more than another because of their skill, but I think the disparity is just so ridiculous that you have people, CEOs or directors or the heads of businesses or people on the board getting multi-million-dollar salaries where I don't really think it's worth it. So that's why we have a class system and society that we do where people live where they are forced to live because that's the best they can do. I can elaborate, I see Charles twitching.
Whoever said.
Are we to go to the next question?
Oh, unless you got, go ahead.
One of the things is that all of those concepts are labels. And labels in America are the things that keep us apart. Because we hold on to our label to the death. We have accepted it at infancy, and we hold on to it and fight for it, not even knowing what it is. And they say one of the first casualties of war is truth. And we will fight, which is war, holding on to a concept that we've been given, socialist, Democrat, Republican. But when we really look at it today, we have an ultra, uber rich that is controlling everything. And we are all on the same level, fighting for a morsel, fighting for a piece, but understanding that it is going to be denied. And our frustration keeps us within what's called a ghetto, or a gated community, or an individual that it will not accept someone from another faith. You know, and we have to really start looking at the dynamics created by these labels. There's an east side and a west side in every town in America. There's a railroad track and across the railroad track in every town in America. And what we need to do is understand that collard greens and plantains and all of those foods make us feel good. But we need to go and understand who those people are and what we all have in common. And this struggle, that's socialism.
What I would like people to take away from this question is your personal power to make things happen, regardless of what title you have or what title you do not have. In my book, Waking Up From Your Parents' American Dream, the introduction starts with the story of my dad back in Haiti, paving the road in front of our house. Why? Because the government didn't do it, and it needed to be done. We would get flooded in the ravine behind the house. So he built steps into it so that people can cross over and that you don't have this human chain of people trying to rescue people from floodwaters. Likewise, there are things you can do. Do you know people? Do you know somebody who has, who is struggling with something that comes easily to you? Why don't you mentor that person? That is your goal in life. It can be 2 or 3 people, but you start there. If we are continuously looking for people with designated positions to do something, you'll be sitting there waiting and watching forever and not seeing any change. Do not discount what you are personally able to do. The fact that, my father is the only private citizen that I know who ever paved a road in front of his house. And that has had a huge impact on me. So what is it that you can do? It may not seem much to your eyes, but it's a lot to other people. So I ask you to consider for yourself, in your sphere of influence, what it is that you can do to change the lives of the people around you. And then, as a grassroots effect, will be that there will be groundswell in the rest of the community.
Okay, thank you. All right, I'm watching this time, and it's 8:12, which means we have 18 minutes till 8:30. So, what I'm going to, well, you know what? I don't want to.
impression, and of course I grew up in a white environment, but over the years that we've been growing together, white and black, I can see blacks and jobs where you didn't see them before, and you see blacks in houses formerly taken by white people, and so I guess it goes against a lot of what's being said, but I'd like to comment on, are we growing together? Are we coming closer? And of course, gentrification goes against it. Are we coming close together, aren't we?
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. Go ahead, sister.
We are one, regardless of what color, what country you come from, or where you're going. We are one. We are one human being. We live on this earth together, and we better live alone. Because if we don't live alone, everything will be destroyed, because we're going to destroy ourselves.
Right, if we don't work together as brothers and sisters, we will perish as fools. I probably messed up Dr. King's quote, but anyway, you get it. Go ahead.
A quick question for the panel, what in your perspective has the city done to promote black business or greater black inclusion, or what has been left undone that needs to be done?
I was getting ready to comment to the other guy's question. Yeah, I would say one of our issues is really more economic segregation, the race, because when you mentioned the housing situation, I would say that after like the 70s or 80s, and Lorraine, you can jump in, you would see a lot of middle class blacks started moving out of Asbury into the suburbs because they could do so. So what was left in Asbury Park was really a greater concentration of lower income, and they didn't have as many role models, because when we grew up, we had the physicians, we had the funeral, we had lots of folks of different professions, and as well as businesses, knuckles, electric, cross section, but we still have our churches, and I find that you can go to the churches and they're there, but they don't really live in Asbury Park so much. So yes, we have made progress, as you mentioned, in terms of living other places, but there's still a void in Asbury Park. But now Asbury Park is the place to be. But
So
folks
they
can't
say.
afford to come back into Asbury Park. When I moved back into the area, I could not afford to, so I had to live in Neptune. But someone else can guess.
Sure. To answer the gentleman's question in the back, I'm not an elected official. I just hold a volunteer position with the Code and Quality of Life Committee. In terms of what the city is doing for businesses in particular, I can't fully answer that. But what I can tell you is that our committee, we have begun this initiative that every quarter we're going to go to every quadrant in the city to talk to citizens. It can be a forum like this, it can be at a church, it can be at a senior center, for example, where people can come and bring whatever issues they have. It's not to say that we ourselves are going to resolve it, but we are going to bring it back to various departments in the city who are tasked to do this. One thing that I think the city was not doing well was in terms of disseminating information. Just putting out the minutes on the website, that's not enough. And waiting for somebody to come to the city council meeting with grievances or whatever it is they want to talk about, that's not really proactive either. However, there are elected officials as well as other folks in town that I have seen being willing to go to public forums or to give out information sessions as they've done in other places. So if you feel that there's something lacking, definitely go in and open your mouth and say something, because not everyone may see the problem that you do.
Okay.
I think the answer to what the gentleman said, in my opinion, everything is how people see the world. Everything is either worldview or what you call ideologically. Under the current system of neoliberal capitalism, puts everything from the government and saying that the private sector or some individual can do it better. The reason why we pay taxes, even though someone was complaining about it, is for the government has overall view based on taxes. Even though they don't do it because it doesn't get away with it, to take care of certain things, the health and safety of the community, health, etc. like that. It was more like that, I would say, 50 years ago, before the Reagan era, when this type of capitalism kicked in. When capitalism kicked in over 50 years ago in the Reagan era, every politician, no matter Democrat, Republican, does the same. It's about making government smaller. We've heard this before. That the private sector could do it better. They defund public housing, so therefore housing fails. They defund, even the VA. They try to privatize the VA. It's all about privatization. That's the neoliberal model of capitalism. So the city only does what the government nationally and locally does. Until we change how government is functioning and give it a neoliberal model and get more progressive models to continue to have the same thing, no matter who's in office.
And I was going to say, with respect to Asbury Park, if I go back 13 years ago when I first started my business, the city council actually had conversations with Asbury Partners at the time. So remember, the city does not really own the boardwalk per se, the pavilions, but we have all of these developers, and they did put a lot of emphasis. We wanted to ensure that minorities and individuals from this community are included. And I attended a meeting where there were about a dozen African American businesses, and they had 2 sessions like that. And it was quite easy for me to get a space at the ground level. But that's all I did, is I put together a business plan and presented to them, and they said, okay, you have it. So we also have to remember to follow through. And a lot of these folks were actually from out of town as well. But I think what's happened is that we did not have really strong enough contracts or agreements with the original developers. So there's nothing in writing to say that they have to do X or Y. But I think in terms of the construction jobs, the laborers, I remember there was a big deal about that. And then when the developers hired people from our community, they were getting a lot of pressure from the unions because they weren't hiring union people, but you know how difficult it is to become a union member. And then in my particular situation, when I lost my spot on the boardwalk, I know that they were quite broke. I know Yvonne Clayton was. She came to my, she was quoted in the paper. The developers were livid about the negative exposure. I got so many emails from people I don't know. The thing that I emphasize is that I don't want you guys to make this about Kate Harris and insist that she be put back on the boardwalk, because it would be too easy for them to say, okay, she can pay X amount of money and she has a spot. My concern was the lack of inclusion in general of African Americans, and not just African Americans, but just people from our community. And people like Criterion, who was there from the 1920s, to me, businesses like that were the heart and soul of Asbury Park. The fact that we were putting together the letter, they meaning the mayor and city council, they didn't need a letter. They actually went on their own and had a follow-up meeting with Madison Marquette and pretty much said, hey, for $10,000, you guys have created yourself an $800,000 PR nightmare. But regardless of what they said, they can't, they're not in a position, they can say all they want, and I don't know what it takes, but I can go on, but I don't like my time.
I just want to get the audience more involved in another question, that's why.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Yes, sir.
First of all, I want to applaud the panel. I think this is excellent. I wonder, for instance, we've got local TV. Was there any consideration about having this panel on our TV station?
Well,
I'm interested in terms of how you...
Being filmed by APTV right now.
yeah, we're being filmed right now.
So this will be live, because I just hope that what happens this evening does not simply end here. But rather, the marvelous eloquence of persons here is just wonderful. And I confess that as an old-timer, I'm just very excited about this. And I have greater hope for Asbury Park. I was getting very disillusioned in this vein. But to be here, you've helped me. I just wanted to make that positive comment, but all. Thank you.
All right, thank you. One more question. Go ahead, Sister Lorraine. Go ahead.
Thank you. It's kind of not a full
Comment.
film was really about housing in Hope 6. And I want to say, in my acting voice, Hope 6 did not just exist in Washington, D.C. Those of you who are from the area, who've been around for a while, know that Hope 6 applied to Asbury Park. Tyrone was working at the Asbury Park Housing Authority when I first heard Hope 6, and that was a lot of years ago. And you will also know that Long Branch got rid of their public housing and the whole mixed-use thing, and some people are back in
Jersey City.
Jersey. Okay, I'm trying not to go far. I'm trying to stay right here. But know that what you saw in the film is not far removed from what is right here. That same issue is here. Boston Way, is it there?
Gone.
Did they start building something quick?
Yeah.
Something going up there right now?
Right.
Labour Village.
And excuse me, just let me interject for a minute. All those places you're talking about, what do we call them? The projects. A project.
Yeah.
Oh, well, it's definitely in the ghetto.
What's happening to the ghetto now, when I'm gonna sit down, the ghetto has great proximity to the what station? Train station. So if you are there and you need to run to get your train, how convenient is it now to make something more livable, more usable, more likable there to attract people? And then they can get right to their business in the city and return to Asbury Park. I think we don't have enough newcomers in Asbury Park. I hope nobody here is going to be offended. That's really interested in the history of and the building and the cohesiveness of Asbury Park. But pay attention to what goes on over there. Hope 6 is alive and well and real. And like the sister said, there ain't no hope in Hope 6.
Thank you. Listen, it's now 8:25, and I would just like to at least hear one more comment, and I want to keep this truly inclusive since we are in a racialized society. I'm not hearing enough from Caucasian people, so somebody step up. There you go. I mean, go ahead, sir. Yes.
Well, I just want to make a comment to what you were saying about Kay. I think that when you talk about the lack of black businesses, what I see, and we're relative newcomers here, 4 years in the city now, is that we live in a diverse city. I see no diversity in the businesses. I see no reason for people of color to be on the east side because there is nothing that is diverse about, there's nothing multicultural about our businesses over here. They are overpriced. They are obviously, the development is being built for a specific wealthy demographic that's coming into this city and so forth. And when Polly and I walk the streets, we moved here, we could live in the suburbs. We want to see white all around us all the time. When I lived in New York City, and Muata knows this, is what I loved is the fact that you could walk out your door and hear 15 different languages and 20 different people, and half those people may be nuts, but that's why you live there, is because you had that. And we have no representation, especially east of Main Street, of the diversity of this city. And my concern is that there's no control over the businesses that are being opened here. Another overpriced restaurant. The music is not even multicultural, is represented in the clubs over there and everything. So that to me is a real issue, and it concerns me about the direction the city's going.
Absolutely.
Okay,
Amen. Let the church say amen.
It's now 8:27. Let me just get ready to tie this up. Okay. You didn't get a chance to try and keep it somewhere. Yeah, all right. Yes, sir.
Yeah, just a quick question. So, are you at all disappointed about the fact that it's basically pretty much a room full of older white people?
No. Well, I mean, I'm just speaking for myself.
It's just strange to me that I would have thought that we would have more representation of both.
Or an intergenerational thing.
As well as age. And for all those, in fairness, I'm 59, so I don't feel like I'm a young guy, but it would have been nice to see some 20 and 30-year-olds. It would have been nice to see some 20 and 30-year-olds of color.
Exactly.
And so, where do you
think the marketing of this went wrong that didn't bring those folks to the meeting? Because we're a generation that's used to trying to make change. But there's a large gap generation that lives within its own isolated world. And then I think now there's this new younger generation that really is looking to be expansive. But there's a whole group of coming into Asbury. So I've been down in the Asbury area for 14 years. So I saw when I used to get stopped by the cop on the boardwalk to go down to the art gallery, to when I couldn't really stay out at night because a guy across the street would get mugged, to now it's safer, but it's lost its charm.
Can I just ask you, what quadrant of the city do you live in?
I am the worst of your nightmares. So I actually live on the border of Ocean Grove and Asbury.
Okay, so
all of my friends own
southeast.
I live on the southeast side. Yeah, I live where, when I moved here, it was really not a great place to be. And candidly, you would think Ocean Grove would be lovely because it's owned by a church, would be looking out for the elders, but people can't afford to live in Ocean Grove anymore.
Right. Okay.
So, but my question though, just to go back to the question,
quickly, please.
is what do you think went wrong that didn't bring people in to make them feel that they should be here to listen to this to effectually change? I don't know.
I think usually a first effort does not necessarily produce a lot of people or produce the expected results, but there is a result. And through, APTV, for example, and other folks who are streaming live, this message will go across to other folks, so that perhaps the next time we have a conversation like this, more people will feel more comfortable coming out and speaking about it. A lot of times when Black issues are being discussed, it's being done by Black people with Black people. So I think it's a good start. I don't think there's anything wrong with this being a majority white audience. It's a beginning, and then we can fill up the room with more.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I just think the thing with that is, and I talked to a lot of the youth, like people under 25, whatever, in my neighborhood and stuff like that, and they know the problem. But they don't necessarily want to come and hear other people talk about it because there is a gap in how older people, especially older Black people, look at younger people. But always think we can teach them something. At the same time, you understand, young people make revolution. I've been doing this stuff since I was in my 20s. That's why I started it. So I'm saying, and a lot of times we're not opening up, and then that's why, they're not here. But I think if we start really doing stuff and taking it to the streets, as you used to say, that's when you'll get more people here.
Okay, listen, thank you. I'm just trying to play to the time. What?
Just let I can try to.
Oh, okay. All right, go ahead.
One of the things that I would really love to see, you asked the question back there, what can the city do? The city can start to deal with Section 3. Section 3 is the requirement for having community residents involved in any construction phases in town. And what they can do is ensure that it goes beyond the set number. So if it's 20%, do everything that they can to bring it over that number. The housing authority, they have first rights of refusal. The tenant councils and the housing authorities, they can get dollars to get projects started. And those are the encouragements that are needed there. The reason that a lot of people are not here is the level of comfortability. Many times we go places where we feel comfortable, but the people that need the messages, many times, those are the people that are expecting different answers. The folks over on that side, they don't want dialogue. We want action.
Show me.
We don't want dialogue. We want to see that there will be a policy for inclusion that goes beyond just the words, but is physical in terms of project labor agreements that say 20% of a population needs to be on every job site that receives federal, state, or local money.
I say.
A couple things. Your concerns, I think, are well received, And it's not the first time I've made that observation. Very often when we go to functions like this, we happen to see the same folks over and over.
Not to interrupt, but I just want to be clear. I wasn't trying to be disrespectful.
No, we didn't take it that way. We feel the same way, okay? But to address that, I am a part of another organization, the Diversity Dialogue Group, where we're trying to do something about that, and we are in discussions right now of having another way of communication via a newsletter, something like that, which can be communicated with the churches, because we have to find, everybody's not going to read email, there's different ways, so we may want to go back to the old-fashioned newsletters, communicate to the churches, so that we are reaching a cross-section of individuals. So your point is well taken, and in terms of gentrification, I'm with you 100%. Most of the people who will come to visit my store when I first opened were so excited about, oh, Asbury's coming back, and they were, I tended to carry the old historic photos of Asbury Park. I've seen people cry because, oh, this is the old Asbury Park, and that's what they hold on to. But when I was displaced, it really was because they felt, now that the high-rise is almost finished, we want everything to be more high-end, and it's definitely going in that direction of diversification. So as a result of that, there are also some things that I'm doing along with some other folks to try to address that. I don't have time to go into it this evening, but I want you to know that there are some things we're trying to do to make it where people want to come. So we feel that it's not their boardwalk, this is our collective boardwalk. And,
Just trying to keep time for away. Derek.
I'm sorry, but what happens is, in all of these communities, Hoboken included, Cary, when there was a consortium, there were trips that went around to all of these communities talking about not just gentrification, but regentrification. Because people that moved out of this area saw the beauty in this area and wanted to come back because of the conveniences. And what happened was that Hoboken, it was the art community that spurred the interest in revitalization. And it is the first community that is pushed out when those economic opportunities come forward.
No place for the artists anymore.
Right, and that's the one thing. We started the Black Box for that reason. Because the arts are the first ones that build the flags, that start the movements, that make the posters. And Mike, you came up with some great ones out there, man. I met you here, you and your wife, at this program. So there's that inclusion that we need to start working on. Broaden our circles, start to understand people, but don't do it as a point of just telling someone. Learn what they have to say. Learn, listen, to take the time to get the gift that other community can give you. And then maybe next time, there'll be many more here.
Perhaps in closing, this is my take on all of this. And it's very simple. Sister Isis referred to it. And we stop thinking in terms of races. Oh, there are 3, 4, 5, 9, 12. Oh, I'm colorblind. You are? That's too bad for you. You don't need to be. If you are colorblind, it doesn't matter. You know why? Because it's only one race. And like flowers that are very diversified, small, large, carnivorous, and others. Well, they're all flowers, ain't they? So, I don't care who you think you are. I'm pretty sure most of y'all are human, although I'm starting to wonder. There's only one race, the human race. Thank you, panel.
Thanks, Charles, and the panel again, everybody. Just one response. I think one thing, this is actually a little bit sad, but this is actually a pretty diverse space at the moment on the east side. If you actually think about the gatherings that happen, the ratio of white and black folks, not a lot of Hispanic folks. But this is actually somewhat diverse for Asbury, which means we have a lot of work to do. And I definitely feel like we do need to reach out to the high school more, to have youth part of this more as well. But to respond to Reverend Gill, If you are interested, in the beginning I mentioned all these different groups that are doing, the dialogue group is doing, trying to write a resolution for the whole city to say that they want inclusion. There's all these different groups, affordable housing, the Committee to Support Kay Harris, to get more black businesses on the boardwalk. So make sure we have your email, and then you can email us and you can ask questions. I want to get involved so that Reverend Gill's request can be honored, and that we don't just talk about it here, but there is movement forward. And again, there's small things and big things we can do, like affordable housing, yes, but we're starting small, so just remember to get a flyer for the cash cow at the table. If you can't go, let your friends know. I know we can get 40 people to 45 people there to get them a lot of business and then continually support them. So it's a small thing, but then we'll also get to build with each other and talk. And when you build relationship with each other, that's when the city changes. When you know your low-income neighbors, or you know the people that are experiencing homelessness on the street, when the city council knows them, that city is going to change. When you're friends with them, you're going to care more about people who are living on the street. When you know that, black folks in our community still make 30 to 40% less money than white folks, and you're in a relationship, you're not only going to care, but you're going to start to do something about it. So come, eat with us, let's get to know each other better. Adrian has flyers. Kareen's going to be selling and signing her book in the back. If you want to give Mary Jane a high five on the way out for tabling, that'd be great. We love you. Thanks so much for coming, and we hope to see you again.